Let's do this. Hi, hello everyone. My name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. I feel like I haven't filmed a video in forever. I don't know why, I don't know what, I don't know where, I don't know who, but it just feels that way. So like I just feel out of practice for some reason. I don't know. Today we are going to do my June wrap up. I keep on forgetting that it's June. I for some reason want to call it July or I continually want to call it July. So if I accidentally say July during this, I mean June. So like I started off really strong with like some really strong books, and then you can just kind of see from the books that I was picking, my mental health just took a dive. And so don't worry, I've got some other books on my TBR that I'm definitely in the mood to read. I'll be getting back to some books that like I feel like will be really good books, but yeah, like towards the end it's like, oh yeah, I was just picking books to not feel anything. So I ended up reading how many books? 15 books. With that, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first book I read / actually listened to is Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman. This one I ended up giving 3 stars. It's a thriller, and overall I enjoyed it. Our main girl character, like her big thing is like she can't leave things alone. And so as soon as this mystery is presented to her, like she can't let it go. She's got to keep figuring things out. It was a little bit quirky and it was a little bit good in that sense. There were so many times when like she would do something and I'd be like, oh my goodness, just let it go. Just like, you want to be safe, you want to be able to like get past this, just let it go. But like she just refused. She kept on trying to like fix the situation. For that part it was a little bit annoying, but then the twist at the end kind of made it a little bit worth it. I will say I was really hoping the bad person wasn't actually going to be the bad person. Like I had a feeling of like who it was going to be, but like I was really hoping that it wasn't going to be that because I felt like it was a little bit obvious. Also, spoiler for 1 second, I'll time mark where to go to not be spoiled. If her husband was like that angry with her, hated her basically, and this started like when they were still engaged, why would he get married to her? Why would they get married? Because it wasn't until their honeymoon that the possibility of all of this money came into fruition. So like in my mind I was like, this doesn't really make sense. Back to non-spoilers. So there was just like a part of it that I was like, I don't know why this person would have done this if the feelings were this bad. It was still fun though. It was still a fun one because it was a cozy mystery, but not. Gives the feeling of like, let's say if Finley Donovan is killing it, if Finley Donovan, it was like actually a darker one and not like a quirky, fun-loving one. Does that make sense? So that is that one, the first one. I would recommend, if you enjoy thrillers, I would recommend that one. The next book that I read is The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. This is the same author of Fourth Wing, and this is really what made me realize that I wasn't going to like Fourth Wing as much as everyone else, because I ended up giving this one the 2 stars. It was not good, and here's why. She tries to write characters as like these typical character tropes. So the guy is supposed to be, he's a special ops guy, he comes back from war, single mother who is down on her luck, she can hardly make ends meet, she has twins, one of the twins is ill, she's got cancer, the twins are like 5. You've got like these characters that you would think like, okay, they would have very strong characteristics to them. They do not. They do not. All of them talk exactly the same. All of them think exactly the same. She would continuously say like the guy, like he's this gruff guy, like I'm terrible with people, like that's what his inner thoughts were, except he was great with people. Like, he was perfect with people. Like, his actions were always great with people. And so it just didn't match up with what she was trying to do. The main girl character was written very well, but the rest of the characters, no. Don't even get me started on, like, the 5-year-olds and how they spoke. They spoke like adults. Like, they would have existential, like, moments. Literally, there was a point in this book when the 5-year-old said to the guy, because like, their dad isn't involved in their life, he, like, stopped while they were, like, walking to the car or something, like, stopped and was like, is this what it feels like to have a dad? A 5-year-old wouldn't have an existential, like, thought like that. Like, they just wouldn't. No, that's not how a 5-year-old would speak. They may have something similar to that thought, something like, so are you my dad now? Like, you're my dad now, right? Like, something like that, more black and white, but wouldn't be like, so this is what it feels like to have a dad. Like, what? No. And so there were just so many times like that kept on happening in the book that just frustrated me. What she had going for her was her plot. I really do think that her plot and, like, the vibe was there, but, like, the characters, it was so distracting. There's a super sad thing that happens in this, and it's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary. It made me so mad. It should not have ended this way. It felt so unearned, so random, so sad, and I was just like, what's the point? That doesn't tie in with any themes. If anything, it just reiterates this bad theme that, like, we're trying to overcome, and it was so sad. She got my tears, and for what? For what? I'm sorry. This book just, like, made me so frustrated. And so you can see why I was very, like, okay, so Fourth Wing is not going to be good as I thought it was going to be. This one, I have a hard time recommending it just because I think the writing is like, the character writing is so bad that it's distracting. But if you want to give it a shot, you know, go for it. So the next book that I read is Monday Is Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. This was so fascinating. It was heart-wrenching. Oh my goodness. This, like, got me in my feels. At first, when I started reading it, I was like, this may be a bit too juvenile for me, because the way in which our main girl, like, is written and how she thinks is extremely juvenile. This just may not be for me. And I was like, is this just how she writes? But then I remembered her prologue was beautifully written, very lyrical. And so that's what showed me that the way in which she was writing the girl was very purposeful. And honestly, that gave me just a new appreciation for how she was writing the book. I was like, that's very impressive that she can go from this very beautiful lyrical writing that you can kind of get the sense is like Tiffany to her embodying her character. For me, that really just, like, connected the dots to where I was like, oh, she's doing this on purpose. And it makes sense because by the end of it, oh my goodness, like, very intense themes are going on in this book. And they're ones that, like, you get the sense of throughout the book. There is definitely a twist that you don't see coming. But wow, what a powerful book. So good. Loved it. Very tough pill to swallow. Go into it knowing the trigger warnings. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I'm very excited to read her next book, Grown. Very well done. I've never seen anything like it. And so, highly recommend this one if you like YA thrillers. The next book that I read was one for which my dog, Clark, picked the books for me, and the first one that I read was The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. Go watch that video to get, like, a more overall in-depth review of this book. All I'll say is I absolutely loved this book. So good. Shannon has done it again. Maybe my new favorite high fantasy series. It's set in a not magical world, but there are mystical things that happen. It definitely alludes a little bit to the Daevabad trilogy. So again, if you want to read that first, do it. We do get a sighting from one of the characters from the Daevabad trilogy in this one. So, like, wouldn't hurt. to read it. I also love the way in which the rest of the series is now set up. Shannon is so good at writing very gray characters, very complex and nuanced characters, and I love that so much. Also, she's really good at writing banter. The banter in this book is so good. The banter between her and her crew had made me literally LOL. I absolutely loved it. The stakes are so high. So highly recommend this one if you are looking for like an adventure book, especially like not necessarily like a classic hero's tale, but like close. Read it. You never get middle-aged women, not conventionally pretty, POC, and a mother as a main character. Read it. Even that is a twist on its head. So just read it. I gave it 4.5 stars. This one, highly recommend. Go read it. The next book that I read is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. This is a very popular romance. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was good. However, like, the stakes just weren't that high in it. Like, there were some random, very dramatic things that would happen. There was just, like, a lot of different plot points coming at us. And so it just made all of them not as necessarily special. They were resolved so quickly. And so that's why it just didn't feel as heavy as I think it could have been. I did like the sunshine aspect of it. Like, I rarely see those. And Archer is such a sweet main male character. It's so different than I think what typically the girlies go for. And so I love that. I would recommend if you enjoy romances, but honestly, if you don't, you could probably skip it. So the next book that I read is Reckless by Elsie Silver. This is the 4th book in the Chestnut Springs series. Yeah, series now. It's not a trilogy. I love characters like Winter. Winter is definitely like a rough exterior, like a tough exterior, doesn't open up easily type girl, and then by the end she opens up to this guy who's very sunshine. Love books like that, and so I think that's why I enjoyed this book probably more than her other books in the series. They're very formulaic. They are very, very cheesy, but they're very sweet. And so it was something that I just needed in between the adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi and the Atlas Paradox. Happy that I read it, and I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Would recommend if you're looking for a light, fluffy read. It's a good one. I think Elsie Silver's writing and also her plots, she doesn't do too much, and I think that that's what I like about it. And she makes them short. Like, she doesn't try and overdo it, and so I like that. I like that about her books. It's the perfect length. It's well-paced. Would recommend. The next book that I read is Little Thief, or The Little Thief, something like that, by Meagan Brandy. This is a dark romance. I've read Meagan Brandy's books before, and they're definitely like childish, immature. Maybe that's a better word for it. I hadn't read a dark romance in a while, and so I think that that's why I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than I typically would. Nothing was like super explained though of like the guy. Like, the guy is supposed to be like this really cool guy, but nothing of like how he's able to do all these really cool things was explained. And so it was kind of like, what? You just kind of have to let some things go. It's definitely one where like you don't want to use your brain as you're reading it. So if you're looking for something that's a bit numbing, that would be a good one. Ended up giving it 3 stars. It was fine. Not anything to write home about, though. The next book that I read is The Patless. Oh, no. The next book that I read is The Atlas Paradox by Olivie Blake. This is the 2nd book in the Atlas trilogy, and it was completely different than what I thought it was going to be. If you want a better review, a more comprehensive review, go check out my Clark Picks the books for me video because this is one of them. It was so different, and I was a little bit disappointed by that because I felt like during this book we had a lot of the information already as the readers that the characters didn't necessarily have, and so it was just waiting for the characters to catch up with all the information that we already had and like put it all together. Definitely feels like a build up to the next book. It definitely wasn't as interesting as the first book, which, I mean, it's second book syndrome. What can I say? I'm hoping that the final book in the trilogy is gonna just be amazing. I definitely think it's set up to where it could be amazing now, especially with the cliffhanger at the end of this book. Just with how it's written too. I like it, but also I don't. I like it in the sense that, like, it's very unique. You can tell that Olivie has put a lot of time and effort into it and really has thought it through. What I don't like is how dense it is. And because it's so dense and we have no like good action bits to break it up, it's just very hard to read sometimes. I ended up giving it 4 stars, took away a whole star because it just wasn't, I needed more from it. But because of all the effort and because I still enjoy the story and I still love the characters and I still find them fascinating, I ended up giving it 4 stars. So, Atlas Paradox. The next book that I read is one that I saw everywhere, and it is Done and Dusted by Lyla Sage. And you guys, I have found my new favorite cowboy romance. This one, so good. I was not expecting it. It gave me the same feels that Icebreaker did, where I was reading it and I was like, oh, I think I found my new favorite like sports romance. With Done and Dusted, got those same exact feelings. I don't know, there was just something about how she wrote it and the banter of the characters and really the characters themselves and the plot. Like, the plot wasn't too serious. It wasn't like too overdone, and I think that that's sometimes what the issue is when it comes to these romances. Like, they're a little bit trying to change your life, but like this one knows what it's doing. And it did it. I loved the characters. I thought that they were so good. I do wish that we had gone a little bit more into the ADHD side and the anxiety side for Clementine. I wish that we would have gone more into that and seen more of how that affected her life, because I feel like that was a little bit glossed over. I like the idea behind it. And so definitely recommend this one if you are looking for a cowboy romance. It's so good. It's so good. It is currently on Kindle Unlimited, so it's a free one. I really enjoyed it. Very excited for her next one. The next book that I read is The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I made a vlog about it, so again, if you want all my reactions, a lot of it is spoilers, but there are non-spoiler sections in it, so if you haven't read it, you can still watch parts of it. Overall, I would say it surprised me. I liked it more than I thought I would, especially with my feelings for her other book. I think she did decent when it came to creating more character types and like being within characters. I would say I think that there was growth there. There was definitely some times when her characters would say things or act a certain way, and I was like, that's weird. That's weird that this character would do that. That doesn't really make sense for her. And if I can see that, then like I think editors would be able to see that. I think Rebecca is really good at writing plot, and she made this more plot heavy than her other book, and so I think that's why I liked it more. I liked the fact that she wasn't afraid to go there as far as like brutality, in the sense that people just be dying, everyone just be dying, and so I'm glad that she's not scared to go there. However, I don't want it to become a thing where people just die for the sake of Rebecca just killing them off and there being no rhyme or reason for it, because I could see her going that route. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's necessarily like it's not my new favorite fantasy romance by any means, but it's a good one. I would say still read it and give it a shot. You may like it a lot more than I do. A lot of people do. But I do recommend not like necessarily giving into the hype before reading it. Like, just let it be what it's gonna be. Like, expect it just to be a middle of the ground and maybe be surprised. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars because I just think it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So take that with it what you will. These next books, I'm probably gonna go through them pretty quickly because I don't have that much to say about them, because again, this is when things mentally, I was just like, oh, ooh. So I was definitely reading to be numb. I was not reading necessarily for good content. And so the first book was Crimson River by Devney Perry. It was available on Kindle Unlimited, so I read it. It was fine. Nothing to write home about. I would say that it makes more sense for it to be so dramatic and like more of like a romantic thriller with the premise of the book, because some of her other ones have not made sense for them to be as dramatic as they get at the end, like where there's crimes and people trying to kill people. Like, it didn't really make sense. With this one, it made more sense. I do like that. The stakes felt real. It was very insta-lovey, which I wasn't super into, but it was fine. I did give it better stars. I gave it 3.5 stars. It may be my new favorite just because we have been in the world long enough now that like I already have a background on things. I already know the vibe, and so it's just easy to go into it and just already know that. We no longer have to build that up. I am interested in the next book. I do like that our main girl character for the next book, because it's going to be Mateo's book, has already been introduced. I think that that's very smart because it makes me excited to read the next book to understand more of what our main female character thinks and does. And also I think that she's going to be an interesting one because her background is so unorthodox. So I will be reading the next one, Sable's Peak, and so, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, Crimson River. The next book that I read is Return Policy by Haley Dickert. This is her second book that has just come out. It's another sports romance, and it was fine. It literally just came out. It's on Kindle Unlimited. Go read it. She's a fairly new author, so show her love and support that way. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I do think it's stronger as far as like a plot and her characters than the first one. However, it still has a lot of like crazy, meaningless drama. Like, crazy things just happen in it, and I'm like, oh no. It feels like it's trying to do too many things again. Like, you don't need to include her mother being a drug addict and her sister being killed and her boyfriend accidentally murdering someone and her being the witness of that, and her boyfriend being abusive now, or her ex-boyfriend being abusive, and her ex-boyfriend like sexually assaulting her. Like, all of those things are happening in this book, and it's like, that's too many things. We don't need that many. Just one of them would have worked. We don't need 5 different trigger warnings in it. I think that that's too many, especially in a book that's supposed to be like a fluffy romance. Like, you could just have her being a person that doesn't really trust people because her mom abandoned her to go do drugs. You don't need all the extra things. But again, I do think Haley's writing style is getting better, which we love to see for new authors. So love that. The next book that I read is The Puck Secret by G.N. Wright. This was randomly a good one too. Another Kindle Unlimited. It wasn't like, it was fine. It was kind of like a case of texting someone anonymously and like falling for them, and then also enemies to lovers in real life. It was fine. It was cute. Nothing to write home about. End up giving it 3 stars. If you're looking for a sports romance, go ahead and read it, but overall you could probably skip it. The next one I read is Until I Get You by Claire Contreras. I will say this one was randomly good. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. It didn't really make sense, but for some reason there was something in there that like scratched an itch for me. Maybe it was just the way in which they were written that just made it that I liked it. Like, it's one where we start off with a couple and like they're falling in love and it's very sweet, and then she abandons him because of unbeknownst reasons, and then he gets really mad at her and he finds her 3 years later and he's like really mean and like brr. And then, you know, them coming back together and then him finding out like, oh, this is the reason why she left. I mean, it was good. It was randomly really dark, and like the bad guy in it was really bad. I will say I did start to read another one of hers after it, and it was not as good. It was very strange. I didn't like it. It's randomly like a hockey romance, but like it's not fluffy. Like, it's also like a dark romance. So I don't know. It falls on that spectrum. I don't think I've ever read a book necessarily like this before, and I think maybe that's why it just felt a little bit unique. It's still very tropey, but yeah. So it was fine. Ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Oh, and then the last one, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that I read. But I was curious, and I was looking for just garbage, which sounds so mean. But I ended up reading Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. And yeah, it was garbage. Like, just the weirdest book. And it's so randomly dark, and it doesn't need to be, but it's so toxic and so bad. I mean, I didn't read it because I thought it was going to be good, or that I thought it was going to be good garbage. I was just like, what is even going to happen in this? And sure enough, like, just the craziest, weirdest stuff. Still not my vibe. And I don't know if you guys ever read books that you know you're not going to like, but you still read it. But like, this was one of them. I gave it 1 star. I don't understand why people read books like this. Don't like it. Don't love it. It's very, very toxic. Never get into a relationship like this, like that are construed in H.D. Carlton books. I mean, I know that people know that, like an objective level, but for people who really like these books, like, I'm a little bit concerned. Like, I don't fully understand why. If you want to tell me why in the comments, you can, but it was bad. It was not good. But I read the whole thing, so I don't know what that says. I don't know what that says about me. Okay, so that is it. That is it for today's video. That was my wrap up. What a weird wrap up. I don't even, like, it again started off very strong, and then by the end, I don't know where we ended up. We ended up where no one should be. This video is going to be coming out a little bit late. I'm actually filming it on the last day of the month, which is Friday, which Fridays are my post days. Life has been crazy this past week, and it's going to be even crazier coming up soon. And so I'm just letting you guys know that, just because my schedule again may be a little bit crazy. If I miss a few days here and there of posting, that's why. I'm trying to reestablish my schedule again. It may take me a little while, but I want you guys to know I am still not going anywhere. I am still going to be posting. It just, my schedule may be a little bit chaotic. So anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know what your favorite books that you read this month are. If you read any books that are super good, any like 5 stars, let me know. Also, let me know if you would like to see me read any specific books, or if you have any ideas of like things that you would like to see me make videos about. Let me know in the comments. Would love to hear what you would like from me as far as content. Yeah. With that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you all again soon. Bye!